Hello and welcome to another episode of The Week Gone By, where we give you a brief of all the news that has happened in Southasia and beyond in the last week. Now, a joint parliamentary committee to probe the 2G spectrum allocation issue was set up last week amid charges and counter-charges between the government and the opposition. Now, Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee moved the motion for the appointment of the 30-member committee. The committee will look into the telecom policy pursued from 1998 to 2009, including the allocation and pricing of telecom licenses and spectrum.
It was early during the week that the Prime Minister of India ordered for the JPC probe into the 2G scam allegations that have rocked the nation from last year. Giving it to opposition demands, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on Tuesday announced the government's decision to set up a JPC, saying that the country could ill afford disruption of the crucial budget session of the Parliament.
We can ill afford a situation where Parliament is not allowed to function during the crucial budget session. It is in these special circumstances that our government agrees to the setting up of a joint parliamentary committee.
Furthermore, the Bharatiya Janata Party and the left welcomed the announcement of the joint parliamentary committee to probe the 2G scam, but were rather unhappy with the language Prime Minister Manmohan Singh chose to couch his statement in. BJP leader Arun Jaitley said that the announcement could have made in a gracious manner rather than projecting that the opposition coerced the government into it. The CPIM, too, voicing its objections, said that the government sought to make a virtue of its own inaction.
मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूँ प्रधानमंत्री जी को कि उन्होंने आपसे आग्रह और अनुरोध किया है कि आप जेपीसी का गठन करें। अध्यक्ष जी, ये सत्ता पक्ष या प्रतिपक्ष की जय पराजय का प्रश्न नहीं है, ये लोकतंत्र की विजय है।
Moreover, while speaking on the floor of the House, the Prime Minister did note that Jammu and Kashmir had gone through a difficult time last year, and he said that the government was keeping its fingers crossed this summer while remaining vigilant.
Jammu and Kashmir, madam, we have passed through a difficult time, particularly the last summer. But since then, the situation has improved. But we keep our fingers crossed.
The Prime Minister also expressed concerns over the problems faced by the Tamil minority in Sri Lanka and the killing of the Indian fishermen by the Lankan Navy.
The return of peace to Sri Lanka, we sincerely hope will enable the Sri Lankan government to pay greater attention to the requirements of providing a fair deal, including political devolution to the minorities, particularly the Tamil minorities.
Also, with regards to the strained into Pakistan ties, Dr. Singh expressed hope that the two neighbouring countries will make the maximum optimum use of the opportunities available to them to shun differences on crucial issues and work towards the normalization of ties.
Today, an atmosphere in which negotiations can go forward. But there are hopeful signs. The foreign ministers, after the meeting of the two foreign secretaries in Thimphu, have agreed to resume the process of dialogue, and that's the only way in which we can resolve our problems.
Now, it wasn't the only story that did the rounds during last week. The other big story that kept the South Asians on the edge of their seats was the condition in Libya. And after Tunisia and Egypt, it was now the time for Libya. Violence surged in Libya's second largest city, Benghazi, where eyewitnesses said protesters have taken control of the city.
Three days after the fall of Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, calls went out on Facebook for peaceful demonstrations in Libya against Gaddafi. Roughly 200 protesters took to the streets in the coastal city of Benghazi. As the revolt against the regime reportedly began to spread within government and military ranks, protesters in Tripoli were believed to have set fire to key government buildings. Colonel Gaddafi's second eldest son, Saif Ali Islam, also went on state television to warn that Libya would face a bloody civil war if protesters continued their uprising. Now later in the week, with no improvement in the situation in Libya, the Indian government sent merchant vessels to rescue the 18,000 Indians who were stuck in Libya. Foreign Minister S.M. Krishna confirmed that the evacuation process has begun. Also good news for Nepal, as 662 nationals who were stranded in the Darna moved to Egypt. While confirming this, the first secretary at the Nepalese embassy in Cairo, Tirtha Aryal, also expressed his concern over the other Nepalese workers stranded in Tripoli and other Libyan cities. He also informed that they are exploring all available options and hope to rescue them safely soon. On the other hand, Bangladesh's Foreign Minister Deepu Moni on Thursday added that her ministry and the Ministry of Expatriates, Welfare and Overseas Employment had requested the Korean, Malaysian and Chinese company to evacuate the Bangladeshi workers when they take their officials to safer places. The Sri Lankan government too was planning to send ship to Malta, the closest port to Libya, to evacuate stranded Sri Lankans. Sri Lanka's Minister of Foreign Employment said that the government was taking such measures as all airports in Libya have been closed. The US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton moreover reportedly said that the US has joined the rest of the world in sending a clear message to the Libyan government that violence is unacceptable and that the Libyan government would be held accountable for the actions that it is taking.
We are joining with the rest of the world in sending a clear message to the Libyan government that violence is unacceptable and that the Libyan government will be held accountable.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon also called for an end to the violence in Libya and stated that the situation in the country was of grave concern. The UN chief also warned Libyan authorities against continuing the crackdown on protesters, calling for an end to President Muammar Gaddafi's rule.
For brutally shedding the blood of innocents must be punished.
Now, the Davis issue continued to make the headlines throughout the week in Pakistan. It was early in the week that United States Secretary of State Hillary Clinton telephoned Pakistani Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani and discussed the issue of the American national Raymond Davis. And during the conversation, Prime Minister Gilani told Hillary Clinton that the government of Pakistan does respect its judiciary and the issue of Raymond Davis would be resolved keeping the law in mind.
Well, what was a case of diplomatic immunity between Pakistan and United States could have become a case of people versus the state with the suicide of Shumaila. US had asked Pakistan to abide by the Vienna Convention of 1961, claiming full diplomatic immunity of Davis. But Article 9 of the Pakistani Constitution says that no person shall be deprived of life or liberty save in accordance with law. Now, with the suicide of the wife of one of the two Pakistanis killed in the shootout by Raymond Davis, the case took a totally new turn. What remained to be seen was whether Raymond could walk away with murder on the crutches of the much-touted Vienna Convention. The Lahore High Court also heard the petitions regarding Raymond Davis and directed the government to submit a response on March 14 in petitions regarding shifting Davis from Kot Lakhpat prison to Lahore Fort and the relevance and legality of the Vienna Convention. Meanwhile, adding more fuel to the whole controversy on the Raymond Davis case, a report by The Guardian claimed that the Davis is a CIA agent who was on assignment at the time of the incident. Based on interviews in the US and Pakistan, The Guardian said that it could confirm that the 36-year-old former Special Forces soldier was employed by the CIA. Moreover, last week reports also mentioned that Pakistani Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani has acknowledged the existence of continuing differences with the United States in the case of Davis, but however, he added that the two sides would not let it hurt their mutually beneficial partnership. Pakistan government also reportedly assured Davis's safety by saying that it has taken steps to keep him from any harm. On the other hand, former Pakistan Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi blamed his government for mishandling the Raymond Davis issue. He even made it clear to the US authorities that Davis's fate would be decided by the Pakistani courts and that he had also asked his government to act in a reverential manner on the issue. But finally, later in the week, when reports suggested that the US had revived high-level diplomatic and military contacts with Pakistan, which indicated their desire to put behind the bitterness that had been created by the arrest of Raymond Davis in Lahore. It was during a meeting between the US and Pakistani military chiefs in Oman when Hussein Haqqani was invited to the State Department for a formal meeting with Mark Grossman.
We now move to Bangladesh, and it was their Foreign Minister Dr. Deepu Moni who called for strengthening of ties with the Indian state of West Bengal. The Foreign Minister even said that West Bengal plays a vital role in the peaceful relationship between India and Bangladesh.
বাংলাদেশ ভারত দ্বিপাক্ষিক সম্পর্কে পশ্চিমবঙ্গের গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভূমিকা রয়েছে সম্পর্ক উন্নয়নের প্রতিটি মাইলফলকে আমরা আপনাদেরকে পাশে পেয়েছি
President Mahinda Rajapaksa meanwhile said last week that Sri Lanka has set an example to the world in rehabilitating and reintegrating former LTTE terrorists. He said this while presiding over a meeting at Temple Trees to review the progress of prison reforms and future plans. The President also pointed out that after the conclusion of their rehabilitation process, nearly 5,800 out of the 11,700 former combatants have been reintegrated into the society. From the island nation, we move on to the Himalayan nation of Nepal. In what might further upset Prime Minister Jhalanath Khanal's bid to expand the cabinet, the UCPin Maoists decided not to join the government on Friday. A meeting of the Maoist Standing Committee concluded that the UML has failed to create a basis on which the Maoist party could join the government. The Maoist spokesperson Dinanath Sharma reportedly said that the Standing Committee decided not to join the government until the UML gave its commitment to the 7-point agreement based on which the party had supported Khanal to become the Prime Minister. Well, right now the biggest buzz in South Asia is the ongoing ICC Cricket World Cup. Let's go ahead and check what this sporting extravaganza provided us with during the past week.
The Cricket World Cup kicked off to a great start as India took on Bangladesh in the first match. Sehwag played one of his best knocks as India defeated the mighty Tigers by 87 runs. In the next match, it was New Zealand versus Kenya, but the African side was washed aside with the fiery pace of Hamish Bennett. Kenya were all out after scoring only 69 runs, and the Kiwis won the match in just 8 overs. Next day, Sri Lanka took on Minnows Canada, and it was just the start that Lankans were looking for. Jayawardene scored a memorable century as they romped to a 210-run victory. In the following matches, England took on Netherlands and the mighty Australians took on Zimbabwe. As guests, both the top teams went on to win their respective matches, but before being given a scare. Pakistan also opened their World Cup account by a great victory over Kenyans, and they won the match by a huge margin of 205 runs. During the week, Pakistan also took on Sri Lanka, and it was a clash of two South Asian giants. The match had all the elements to make it a nail-biter, and in the end, Sri Lanka fell short by just 11 runs. The match between South Africa and West Indies and Australia versus New Zealand were predicted to be high-pitched battles, but at the end they turned out to be pretty one-sided games. The two favourites, South Africa and Australia, both won their respective matches. The other match of the week was one between Bangladesh and Ireland. To everyone's delight, Bangladesh won the match by 27 runs after some good bowling performance by Shafiul.
We will now wrap up this edition of the Week Gone By over here. I will be back again next week though with more news and updates from across South Asia. Until then, goodbye and keep watching TV South Asia.